Doctor, look.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Stand clear.
Well, what's going on, everybody? Thanks a lot for coming back for another episode of Dr. Homebrew. We have some canned beer today, and I love getting canned beer. It's like, I don't know, seeing kids play with toys on Christmas morning. It's like it's such a new technology that it's just like, oh, this is really nice. It's sort of heartwarming in a way to be like, oh, things are still moving forward in the beer world, and we finally get some cool toys to play with.
Well, unlike 20 years ago, it's what you expect beer to come in these days. So you get like a beer bottle. Homebrew entry. It's like, oh, this feels so old fashioned now. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a beer.
In our next show, we're going to be drinking a hop water, and it came in like a big grolsch a grolsch bottle. It was only one of them. And I was like, oh, well, I can't split this. But also, this is a lot. There's a lot of liquid. And like, just maybe it's coming from the more beer side, but it's like, I just see the cost in these. I mean, it's like a $3, $4 bottle. This man's never going to get back. I feel kind of bad. But cans.
Well, I have faith in your ability to consume that entire bottle.
Well, what ability? Sure. Desire? I don't know. I'll let you know when I taste it and let you guys know how it's going to go. But today we have Andrew on the show. Andrew, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
It's a pleasure.
And you have sent us a 21C. Now, before I reciprocate the pleasure, what style is this?
It's a New England IPA.
Oh, yeah. See, I don't know. Even Zoom gave you a thumbs up for some reason. New England style IPA, that's fine. We'll try it. We'll see what happens.
Otherwise known as Hazy IPA in the guidelines. But yeah, that is notated in there too as also AKA.
Is that like a Cascadian Dark versus Black IPA thing?
Yeah.
Oh, what name pisses people off the most? And that's what I'm going to use.
How about a hazy Cascadian?
Foggy IPA. That's the worst.
Foggy IPA. Yes, I like that.
We had a guy, I think it was Cloudburst Brewing. They came up with, fog. Wasn't it foggy? Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was funny. I like it.
That's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Turbid.
Kelly Craft makes Carl the Fog, which is a hazy IPA. I haven't drank it, but I've seen it at Safeway.
No, Shark, can you come up your volume?
Oh, yeah. Let me see what I can do here.
Please, thanks.
There's also the opaque IPA. It's opaque and it's an IPA.
That I hate. No, I know.
That's terrible. See,
that's
we can
awful.
Get people to hate it.
Yeah.
How about this? Is this better?
Yeah, you're good. Thanks.
Okay.
I thought you were speaking Greek to me for a second.
I got to join JP in the thing of hating things. I hate opaque IPA. I hate it.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Is there someone actively calling it that?
No, I just made it up.
Oh, okay.
Don't. And most of them aren't truly opaque anyway. So
stop making things up.
Yeah,
please. I will stop.
For the love of God, you're going to give someone a bad idea.
Well, Madonna kept me up until 2 a.m. last night. So sorry, I'm really tired today. My jokes are going to be bad.
You went to Madonna. Well, first of all, gonna be. They always have been. You went to a Madonna concert. I knew she was still out there doing her thing because there's that video going around where she's like wildly shaking her, derriere in her overstuffed bodysuit, and she just looks like she's convulsing. Was it that bad? Was it pretty bad?
She's a powerhouse. She can really move around the stage still, and she is fit for not just for her age, like more fit than most people her age for sure.
She's a performer,
and her voice sounded good. The production was really something. So yeah,
it existed.
We were in the 8th row, and we felt they had this massive ring of fire shoot up from the round stage in the back, and it was just so hot you could feel it on your face. I can't imagine what the guys in the front felt like.
So you were just way up there.
Horny is what I imagine they felt.
Yeah. Section 102 at Chase Center, 8th row. Nice. It was pretty good seats. We splurged a little bit, but this was full circle for my wife because she saw her on the Blonde Ambition tour. Yeah, way back when, 1990, I think. And
that would have been like the 80s, I think, for Blonde Ambition.
It was my first time seeing her, and she's kind of doing the hits and stuff. So I kind of liked that.
Cool, man.
It was to experience that level of a performer who's done it for 4 decades.
Oh yeah,
and kept it going. Hey, but
that's great. I just feel like the videos that I've seen, she should have stopped like 15 years ago. But God bless her. You know what I mean?
The videos can bring out the worst in people. Like, just watch our videos and like zoom in on us when we're making a weird face drinking a beer, and you'll find all kinds of reasons to hate us too.
I try to convince my daughter. I've told you before. I try to convince my daughter that I'm a YouTuber because these videos are on YouTube, and she's almost 17, and she's always like, "No, Dad, you're not a YouTuber.
You're not." Well,
just
I guess.
no.
I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, Andrew, let's get into your beer, man. Is this? Are you a hazy IPA guy?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. All right. No fault of your own.
Yeah, it's got a permanent tap handle on the keezer, so I'm always working to improve it. So
that's fair. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Well, that's all right, man. Look, I like when people hone in on a style that they enjoy, and I don't have to love it, but it's much cooler if I did. You know what I mean? So this is something you've done before. We're trying to help you perfect it a little bit.
Yeah, this is my second iteration of this recipe, and I've probably done like 6 to 8 other ones.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Looking forward to it, man. It's cracking the can sounded pretty good, and it's pretty well carbonated. So don't forgive the dirty glass. Shar, why don't you start us off with this beer, please?
Excuse me. Start us off. Thank you so much. So, Andrew, thank you so much for sharing your beer. And you're coming in from Nantucket, I understand.
Yeah. Yep. I'm on the East Coast. So this is definitely up my alley, New England. So yeah.
Nice. I've never been to Nantucket. I've seen it on the map. I've been to Boston. I've been to Massachusetts. It's one of those places I've always wanted to go. What's it like living there?
You've never been to Nantucket? That's wild. Because there's that limerick. There's that song about you.
I know there was a man that went, and I was not that man.
Brian Shar was a man from Nantucket. That's always how I was taught it in school.
A brewer. Andrew from Nantucket.
Winters get a little long, but the summers is what keeps everyone coming back. So yeah.
Nice. Do you have a local homebrew store?
No.
Okay. Yeah, no. I figured it's kind of an island. Or is Nantucket an island, or is that Martha's Vineyard?
No, they're both. We're neighbors.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm not always great at geography. Are you in a homebrew club, or can you sustain one on an island?
No, I'm on online. The brew club, homebrew club. So that's it.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for shipping this all this way. I mean, does it cost more to send things from Nantucket because you're on an island?
Not necessarily, a little bit more, but it's just takes a little bit longer. Everything's a little delayed depending on weather, especially this time of year.
Yeah, I get that. So again, thank you so much for going to all the trouble. I really enjoyed this beer. I'm coming back to it. So I judge this beer, like I often do, about an hour and a half, 2 hours before the show, because why would I plan or engage in something like that in my life? Well, I just usually have a lot of stuff happening. So I'm like, okay, I'll judge it 2 hours beforehand. Then I'll let it sit in my counter in the kitchen, unless it's middle of summer, which you don't want to do that. It's 100 here in the summertime. Right now, it's nice. It's not going to get. It's just going to kind of open up and get a little bit better. I enjoyed this beer a lot. The aroma. Going to the aroma part of the score sheet. Upon opening, there's a really high hop aroma. It just jumped out of the can. I didn't have the can near my face. It was this far away, and I still smelled tropical hop aroma. That was really amazing. I really enjoyed that a lot. Very high hop aroma, sort of a juicy, fruity, tropical character. Low malt aroma, but like in any IPA, whether it's hazy or West Coast, really hops are going to take center stage in the aroma, as they should. I didn't get diacetyl, didn't get off aromas. I got kind of a little bit of a light cardboard as it warmed up. And I mentioned that about sitting on my counter because I like to let the beers for the show. I like to judge them and then come back to them later on, maybe an hour, 2 hours later, after they've sat at room temperature. And sometimes good or bad features of the beer don't show up until it gets a little bit warmer. And this one, the juice character is really interesting. It really maintains, but there's a little bit of oxidation, a little bit of cardboard that I get that gets a little bit more pronounced with that time. So 8 out of 12 for aroma, appearance 3 out of 3. It's hazy, as it should be. It's golden brown in color, but sort of a light brown, more toward that golden part of the spectrum, I'd say. Large head persists a long time. mean, you can't see it here, but it's been sitting out for a while. I'll be curious to get to your recipe. The style guidelines crack me up because they specifically talk about how hazy IPA, the haze comes from hops and never from starch like oats or something like that. And as we all know, most commercial brewers have come around to using some form of oats in the mash for a hazy IPA to get the haze, and the hops are just part of that. So nobody's laughing about my thinking that was funny, which is okay.
You should be used to that by now.
Yeah, well, I've been doing the show for long enough that I totally get that. Appearance 3 out of 3. Flavor. Initially, the flavor is hops, lots of tropical hops. Medium malt and medium hop bitterness come up to balance the hop flavor mid palate, which is the first time I've ever written that sentence. Usually the hop bitterness is coming up to balance the malt or something, but here the hop flavor is so intense out of the gate that the malt and the bitterness both have to come up to have some interplay with the balance here. What's interesting is the hop flavor, it's still, after being open for 2 hours, that hop flavor, that juiciness is still there. And there's a little bit of an almost orange juice character, not a Tropicana, but like a real orange juice character that's still in the background and still is like the backbone of this beer, which I really like. It's not, I guess oranges tropical fruit. I think they're considered citrus, but oranges don't grow in like a freaking coniferous forest in Alaska. Of course they're tropical. It's a weird categorization that orange might not be, but that orange is there. It's well attenuated. The finish is moderate length and balanced. I get some low cardboard oxidation as it warms, and what's interesting is the hop flavor is still here. The aroma does drop off with time, but that's okay. I mean, it's anything sits open for a while. A lot of volatiles are going to come off of that. Give it 12 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel 5 out of 5. It's creamy, no warming, medium body, medium carbonation. Nothing really wrong there. Overall impression, I gave it a 7 for a total of 35, which is in the very good range. I really like this beer. The hop flavor. This is what's really fascinating. Open up this beer, and the hop flavor kind of dropped off a few minutes afterwards, and I come back to it a couple hours later, and it hasn't. So I think I may have had a little palate fatigue right out of the gate. That does happen. And it's all with really strongly flavored beer. And sometimes just the fact that it's still cool out of the fridge will do that to your tongue. So I think it's an excellent beer. There's a little bit of cardboard, which I suspect is oxidation that comes from the canning as opposed to bottling. But at a homebrew level, I made a note to consider packaging in bottles to reduce oxidation. Well, if you're going to enter a competition, they probably want bottles anyway, and you'll probably get better protection from oxidation in a bottle rather than a can in a competition context. But if it's something you're going to hand off to friends, something that's going to get drank right away, the can has more surface area, right? Instead of a bottle when you're filling it, there's a lot more surface area for oxygen to invade the beer. Does it matter in the space of a week or two? Probably not. Does it matter if you're sending it off to competition and it might be a month or two before it gets judged and it might sit in somewhere warm and the oxidation just gets worse? Yeah, in that context, you probably still want to think about bottles unless you're really confident in your canning process. But overall, I think this is a really well-made beer. And I really appreciate you shipping this like 3,000 miles from an island in the Atlantic to us for us to talk about. So thank you so much.
And that literally is where Brian lives. That he's got the bridge right behind him. He lives on that rock, so he's at the Pacific here.
That's right. He's about to jump off.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a Golden Gate behind him there, as you can see if you're watching us on YouTube or whatever.
Right.
Podcast. Sorry, you miss. You don't miss much, honestly. But okay, yeah. Same beer, and I just opened the second can just for fun too, because I usually judge the one can ahead of time, and I'll judge the second one the day of. But it was a busy week. Madonna, all that. Anyway,
you got to have your priorities, and of course, Madonna is going to come first.
Yeah, well, I know you went to see Brian Setzer the other night too.
On Sunday night, that's a little bit less crowded. It was down at Fox Theater in Oakland. Had a great time.
Oh, that's a great place to see a show.
it's funny. It was a fantastic show. The guy's probably 65 years old and did a great hour and a half. I was hoping for some of the Christmas songs. I love the Christmas album, but it's February.
What are you talking about?
That shit ain't gonna happen. I know. I was still hoping for like a Christmas song. I don't know. I like the Christmas album.
One can hope,
Yeah, exactly. I hoped for a good show and I had a great time. So that's the important thing.
He does really do a good Christmas thing. We learned one of his. We played a Christmas party at Shadow Puppet, or just a gig around Christmas time. But yeah, we learned one of those. Anyway, yeah. Opened the can. And the sheet needs to be updated because it's like bottle inspection, appropriate size cap, fill level. Da, da, da. Can't see the fill level, but
I had an NA there. Not that it mattered.
Yeah, with a can, you just put okay. It's a can. Aroma wise, like Brian, I got a fairly sharp hop burst right up front with what I got was medium citrusy, a light tropical, and a light apricot in there. Pretty nice mix of hops overall right up front. And one thing I look for in hazies is a little sulfur can ruin them, and that can come up pretty easy in making hazies. But yeah, I didn't get any sulfur in this one, which was nice. There was something just slightly interrupting the hop to me there. And I felt like I'm going to smell both of these because I poured a little bit of each one. Sometimes when it's hard to get diacetyl in hop beers, but when hop beers have a little diacetyl in them, it plays a certain way and it kind of dulls the hops, and it doesn't come across as overt butter, but it's a weird little edge and it detracts from the hops a little bit. So it was honestly, if it's there, it's a very light diacetyl, but medium free esters, no DMS or acetaldehyde detectable in there. And the malt is kind of just subdued, out of the way, bready quality malt. And I felt like, and sometimes the visual cues will also give me hints about things, and that is, it looks a little dark when I get into the appearance for the style, and I'm wondering if it was lighter before. And sometimes these, when you put them in the container and ship them long distances, they'll darken as they go. And it might be that this beer in the keg or whatever container it's in to start with, if it wasn't all canned, is much lighter than this. But as oxidation starts to creep in on a hazy IPA, it turns them darker and you get slightly dulled hop. There's a ton of hop in here, and what's there is really nice, but something's starting to take away from it, it seems like. So I feel like it's possibly a little oxidation. So yeah, again, it's a medium kind of golden amber color. I'm trying to open the second can to see if there was a little package variation. It almost seems like the second one is a little brighter, and it does almost play a little differently. But yeah, it's kind of a medium golden amber color with aggressive white head of white bubbles lacing on the glass, striated around the edges, and just wild. The haze in the beer is moderately high, but you can see through the corners a bit. It's not completely opaque. So yeah, just a bit darker style. I knocked it down to a 2 out of 3. Of course, that's 67%. But yeah, like, I guess you can get into decimals. I was judging a competition last weekend, and someone was like, I can do a 2.5 for this one. That's not really that bad appearance wise, but I don't want to take off a whole point. And you can do that as long as you come to some kind of an integer at the bottom. Flavor wise, the beer it has a medium low bitterness, which is nice, and out of the way. You don't want it too high. It's definitely not attacking too much at all there. With a moderate hop flavor, again, with the citrusy kind of medium and a light apricot like element below that. Seems like a fairly clean ale ferment. I'm not getting any overt butter here, the acetal element. We can in here, I feel like it's just a little, I don't get cardboard either. At most, kind of a low honey-like edge to the malt that is just kind of dulling the flavors a little bit. The beer is semi-dry. You can taste a little bit of sweetness, and these things don't need to be overtly sweet, but you'd be surprised how high you can get on a finishing gravity on a hazy and still have it play right. It's gonna it can have pretty substantial body, pretty substantial residual gravity in it, and still work well as a hazy IPA. Whereas American IPAs are mostly dry. If you get one that's above 10-10, you're gonna be like, oh, that's sweet hop water, But yeah, so yeah, definitely balance the hop. Possibly some faint oxidation going on here. There's no hop burn in the beer, which is good. That's another thing I'll watch out for in hazies. And yeah, no, it's pretty much where it needs to be in the flavor. I did give it a 12 out of 20 there. Just some of the balance issues for me, but medium bodied in the mouthfeel, as it should be. It can be medium to medium high, with a medium high carbonation. It's pretty perky. The beer is somewhat creamy, but I think with a little more body, it might be smoother. But it's definitely not acidic or sharp. There's no astringent quality to it at all. It's it's smooth. I think just being the general dryness is keeping it from being quite as smooth as hoped, but it still goes down pretty easy. Nice smooth drinker. So 3 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression: it's a real pleasant drinking hazy IPA. A lot of good hops in it, especially right up front when Brian said, when you first open it and you first smell it, it's like, okay, there's a lot in there. It takes a lot to come out that brightly too. You have to use a lot of dry hops to get there, and I'm sure you did. It has a good level and appropriate haze. I would just like to see a little bit more body and see that oxidation and any light off characters that might have been muddling it a little bit. Be it a little diacetyl or a little papery or honey-like character from the malts oxidizing, to get out of the way a little bit. There's a few tricks in hazies. You probably know a lot of them, but with all light malts being, it's just light malts only. You have to acidify your your mash water pretty well, and your sparge water to get it to finish at an appropriate pH. If you go too crazy with that, it's going to be too acidic. This one doesn't seem too acidic. It seems like it could probably use a little more acidification, if anything.
Okay. Would you end up giving it, Brian? Sorry.
Oh, I landed at I'm still on the overall impression, but I landed at a 31. I ended up giving a 7 out of 10 for overall impression.
Okay.
And a real good insurance policy against any diacetyl, which especially can come from hop creep as you're adding hops, and the carbohydrates in the hops will start to re-ferment and add diacetyl as is added early in fermentations, and that can just stick in the beer and you taste something right out of the fermenter. It's great. You dry hop it. Oh crap, all of a sudden it's got a little diacetyl. It's a great insurance policy. Just add a little drop of this ALDC enzyme to the beer. There's literally no downside. It's kind of expensive, but on a homebrew level, we can afford it. The bottle's expensive, but you don't use hardly any per batch. So it's, per batch, it's not that expensive.
Sure.
And just be really careful in your cannings and transfers. Just very, very, very careful to avoid any oxygen pickup. And there's a lot of tricks for that we could also talk about. I don't think it's overly oxidized. And these are all, I feel like I sound like I'm picking it apart and trashing it, but they're really fine points. This is a very good beer in the, we both scored it within the 30 to 37 point range. And I think that's fair. It's very drinkable. You could give this to your friend and enjoy a good amount of it. But you could really dial this in and get it up to higher 30s, 40 points, working on it a little bit more. And maybe it tastes more like the higher 30s, where it is, where you're drinking it there. If you're not drinking it with us, what's going on?
No, I am.
Oh, you are? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I missed that. Out of your keg. So
okay,
well, I would say good. Too, with that apricot-y thing, it could be from biotransformation during the active ferment hops, and if you use a little less of those and push more of your hops toward the later dry hop instead, over like the whirlpool and active fermentation, some of the stone fruit might get a little out of the way. Not that it was unpleasant, but if you want more of that tropical, bright, citrusy.
Well, let's see what he had. We don't even know what he did, right?
We don't know. Yeah. We don't know. But that's okay. About all I had to say about that one. And thanks for sharing it.
My real thought, real quick thoughts that don't really matter, and then we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna listen to Andrew talk. So, Andrew, you got to wait for a little bit longer for more rambling. But at least mine doesn't make any sense, and you can disregard it. But I did the flavor I thought was pretty good for Hazy IPA. It's not like overly chalky or overly weird. Sometimes these beers can be too dry hopped and too hop forward and too much flavor, and it's that weird creaminess that I don't really like. It's uncomfortable for me. It's like pulling apart a cotton ball where it's just uncomfortable. I don't like it. But this was really good. I thought it felt a little thin. I thought it almost had a little like a cidery thing. I feel like it was, it could have had a little more malt character to it. Unless you're going for a lower version, but it didn't taste like it had lower alcohol. It tasted kind of on the hot side. And I wonder, if it had a little more malt in there, a little more body, if that would cover up some of that alcohol hop. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I would probably give it like a 32 or 35, something like that. I think it's a good flavor. It's easy to drink, which if for me, that's all I care about with these beers. Or it's like, I've had so many of them over the years where like, I would never finish this beer. I would never. And so from then on, that's like the benchmark of if for me, if this beer is well made, is if I could actually drink it and I would actually be able to drink this. Where there's so many finish it, dude. Where it's like I can't. I'm like, on the session we'd take a break and I'd look at Warren and be like, I can't. Would you fucking drink this? And he goes, no, absolutely not. I can't do it. So there's that. I appreciate the small beer factor, I guess, maybe, unless that's what you weren't going for. But it's a little more approachable, and I appreciate it. But anyway, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to get the recipe from Andrew and see if Brian Cooper was right about all of his assertions. So hang on when it's Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back. What's up, homebrewers? Hey, let me ask you a question. You spend a lot of time making your beer taste the way you want it to, right? Some of you even send beers into Dr. Homebrew for feedback. Well, the next logical step in your creativity is to craft some labels for those beers. And there's nobody better at creative labels than Grog Tag. Their easy-to-use designs let you turn out some pretty amazing stuff like labels, bottle caps, coasters, even six-pack carriers with minimal effort on your part. They have a range of label sizes that fit any vessel you can think of. Bottles, cans, growlers, kegs. GrogTag has you covered. Head over to grogtag.com today and check out their line of amazing, fully customizable templates and get your beer looking its best. GrogTags are water resistant, reusable, and will have your naked bottles looking great in no time. That's grogtag.com, and be sure to use code BNARMY at checkout to save 10% on your order.
Dr. Homebrew, please report to the ER for code blue. Dr. Homebrew to the ER, please. Oh, and your tea time has been moved to 2:30.
All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. Andrew, what's up, man? You ready for some some recipe sharing?
Oh yeah,
right,
yeah. I'm ready.
All right.
So, I sent you guys this basically because I also wanted to see how Hazy's new IPA would travel and ship around because, oxidation is the one. So I actually canned one for myself, cracked it open before the show, and immediately I saw that it was oxidized as opposed to coming off the tap. So you guys are right on that, touching on the slight oxidation, but it's a weird.
It is slight. I don't want you to shit on yourself here because it's slight. I mean, Cooper's laugh. I've had beers that are like literally you're chewing a hunk of cardboard in a box. Something got shipped to you from Amazon, and this is beer is cardboardy. It's cardboardy at like a 1 or 2 out of 10. This is not like it's not horrible.
Yeah, I almost get like a apple cider, like fresh apple cider as opposed to cardboard.
Yeah, definitely cidery.
Yeah.
But, again, not unpleasant, just unwanted.
Yeah.
Unwanted.
Not where it should be.
Unloved. Ed. Anyway, sorry.
What a great movie.
So, I'll break down the recipe for you guys. You guys can kind of see where I went there. This finished 6.7%, so not too crazy, but kind of in that mid-range for IPA.
Cool.
45% floor malted Weirmann Pilsner, 26% Golden Promise, 14% flaked oats, about 10% white wheat malt, 3% just corn sugar dextrose, and then about a 1% honey malt. I had to throw that in for Shar. I know he always picks that out. So
I love honey malt so much. Yeah, but 1% of anything is hard to tell. Frankly, I would take out the 1% honey malt and that 3% corn sugar, because those concentrations, they're just more of a pain in the ass than they are a flavor contributor.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, I don't know if the honey malt's doing anything in the corn sugar. I was just like, oh, let's throw some in, maybe bump up the ABV, but they came out higher than I was expecting anyway. So, and then on the bittering addition, I like my hazies a little bit more bitter. So I do a slight charge, just a 30-minute boil, a half an ounce of Magnum to get about 18 IBU, and then cool it down, do a 30-minute hop stand at 170 degrees, 2 ounces of Citra, 2 ounces of Mosaic, and that's it for the hot side.
Interesting. And you'll get bitterness out of that, which is good. And that's one thing I didn't write on my score sheet. I loved that you had a firm bitterness. It wasn't excessive. It wasn't West Coast IPA. But if these beers don't have that bitterness backbone, in my opinion, they get flabby and they're overly sweet and hard to, like Jason was saying, they're hard to finish. They're not pleasant. They got to have some bitterness, even though it might be a third or a fourth of a West Coast IPA.
Yeah, I've found I've kind of, as soon as I kind of put a little bit more of that bitterness in there, I was like, oh, this is what I'm been after. The kind of the style and the commercial examples I think are a little bit more bitter than just like mixing the whole thing. So
exactly. So
then I fermented pretty cool for, I don't know, ales maybe, but 66 degrees with Lallemand Verdant yeast, just a dry yeast. Being out here in Nantucket, I'm searching for a nice dry yeast that's going to be predictable and consistent, as opposed to waiting for a week or a week and a half for a liquid pitch that who knows what it's going to do in the middle of summer. So fermented that at 66, bumped it up a couple degrees for diacetyl at rest. I think I bumped it up to 70. And then I kind of been toying around with my dry hopping schedule. So after fermentation was done and after the diacetyl rest, I did a soft crash down to about 58 degrees. And then that's when I dry hopped. I did 4 ounces Mosaic, 4 ounces Citra, and about 2 ounces Amarillo. And then when I threw those in, then I crashed it down to about 37 degrees. So, and I try to only keep it on the hops for about 2 days. And then this one I threw in loose. So then I had a heck of a time kegging this. I had so many clogs, but I tried to pull
I can't even imagine. What was your batch size? A 5 or 10 gallon?
5 gallon. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of hops for dry hopping.
Yeah, I ended up with about 3.5 gallons of beer, so it was a little disheartening. But off the keg, it tasted amazing. So, and then I just do a cooler dry hop edition, kind of taking some notes from Scott Janish's book, and I don't know, just toying around with it. And then also Cooper mentioned the diacetyl. I've had a couple bad experiences dry hopping and then hop creep, and then you just ruin your whole batch of beer just with that hop creep. Tastes okay, and then it's like butterscotch. It's like half my batches have almost been tossers just because of dry hopping kind of gets away from you. So I'm trying to do a little bit shorter, a little bit cooler, and see how that goes. And this one came out pretty good. But yeah, that's kind of it for the recipe. And then the water chemistry I've been kind of dialing in. I've started with RO. I don't plan on living in Nantucket forever, so I kind of wanted to create from a clean slate, so I can take these recipes with me wherever I end up. So kind of try to shoot for 150 ppm of chloride, 75 sulfate, and this one came out 100 calcium. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's good. Yeah, your calcium's not it's not chalky or anything. And yeah, 2-to-1 chloride sulfate ratio is good. I was going to go back and ask when you do that, the soft crash, is it sealed, or like, do you have a way to keep oxygen from getting in as you cold crash it? How do you do that?
Yeah. So then when I soft crash it, I'll put about, I don't know, 5 or 10 PSI on it when I add the hops. So I'll open it up with little positive pressure of CO2, put the hops in, put the lid on, and then put like 5 or 10 PSI on the tank, and then just kind of let it ride for a couple days as it goes down to 37.
Yeah, that's good. You can keep it controlled that way. A lot of people, when you cold crash, you just have an airlock. Air's just going right in, and it can really mess up a beer like this. Yeah. You got to be so careful. Are you opposed to trying the ALDC enzyme just as an insurance policy against?
No, I'd try anything at this point, just because that hop creep is just like it can get out of hand pretty easy.
Yeah, you can get away with as many dry hop additions as you want with that, and without getting the hop creep. I think it just reduces the precursor to diacetyl. Those vicinal diketones get reduced to a much less flavorful compound. There's no flavor to this stuff, and you just add it. You can add it at pitching and at dry hopping. Just it's a little drop in your batch. It's nothing. So, literally no downside. I like the stuff. But they don't pay me anything.
It's a great idea, especially at a homebrew level where you're trying to dry hop, and all you want to do is, I didn't really get any diacetyl out of this myself, but I get that with hop creep, that can be an unpredictable thing. And you've spent all that time and money on a beer, especially with hops being expensive, not necessarily at a homebrew level, but they still can be. It's a lot of effort, and you don't want to have diacetyl come in at the last second. I really love the fact that you put Amarillo in for your dry hop. Amarillo is one of my favorite hops. It's been one of my favorite hops for 20 years.
Yeah, same.
It's got such a great character. It's not like the fancy new thing. It hasn't been for 20 years, but it's got staying power, and people use that for a reason. And that flavor is phenomenal. And I think some of that comes through as some of that tropical, citrusy, orange juice, a little bit of tropical fruit in there. And that was a great call. I would consider, I would do that again if I were you. I might even think about bumping it up.
There you go.
Because it's not something everyone does now.
The Citra and Mosaic are nice too, but that Amarillo, when I came, Cascade used to be the king way back when, and then Amarillo came out, and it's a little brighter, a little limier almost, and it's got a really nice character to it, and this, that's part of what's giving this East Coast IPA kind of a West Coast twist, in addition to the slightly bigger bitterness that you've given it, which is fine. It still plays fine as a hazy. It's not over the top, but it gives it a little edge. I can have them either way and find balance in them. The softer hazies without this much bitterness are just fine too.
Yeah.
But this one plays like a West Coast leaning hazy IPA, which is it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Andrew, if that's it, we're going to let you go. We kept you on for about 15 minutes longer than usual, so I apologize about that.
You're an engaging guest, and your beer is worth talking a lot about. So that's what we're on.
And you gave us some honey. You want to do that on the next? Let's do it on the next one, because we have people in line. So we'll let you get out of here, and then we'll see you on the next show.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back with some more beer here on Dr. Homebrew. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello, fellow BNers. This is Sully from the 21st Amendment Brewery located in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park. Before Nico and I opened the 21A and before I was a professional brewer, I homebrewed on my small 4-burner apartment stove in a back house in Santa Monica, California, making my extract brews before graduating to the daunting idea of all-grain brewing. Homebrew books and information was hard to come by back then. The internet hadn't been invented yet, along with other things we take for granted today, like electricity and potable water. One thing I wish I had back then when I was learning was a radio show that could teach me the ins and outs of brewing and answer questions that I had about homebrewing, a resource for making great craft beer. The 21st Amendment Brewery is excited to be a proud sponsor of Dr. Homebrew, a great show that teaches you what you need to know about making incredible beer. Good stuff. Listen up, you might learn something. I certainly did. And thanks for your support. Tasty Crack Cans.
The leader in affordable, high-quality kegerators is here. Introducing Komos, the kegerator designed with serious beer drinkers in mind. It features an all-stainless steel draft tower, a major upgrade over traditional chrome-plated brass towers, and Komos keeps your new tower cold with their air-cooled tower fan, wrapping your beer lines in frigid coolness. Your beer is poured from innovative forward-sealing faucets that don't leak, so they stay cleaner for longer. Dual gas inlets on the rear of the fridge allow you to run both CO2 and nitrogen gas. Serve your beer with CO2, serve your kegged wine, or even cocktails with nitrogen. The digital temperature display has the largest range available, allowing you to use the Komos Kegerator for fermentation if you need to. And now Komos Kegerators ship with duo-tight draft fittings for that click-to-connect assembly we've all dreamed of. Buy direct from KomosDraft.com and receive free shipping on your order. That's KOMOS Draft.com.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but we're going to have to pour you out.
Back to Dr. Homebrew.
All right, thanks for hanging around, everybody. We have Chris on the show with an International Amber Lager. Chris, what's up, man? Welcome to Dr. Homebrew.
Thanks, guys.
Hell yeah, man. Is this the first International Amber Lager you have done?
I think that's probably the case. Yeah, I've never tried to clone Yuengling before, but
is that what this is?
I grew up. What's that?
This is a Yuengling clone.
It's a Yuengling clone, yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
I grew up in Jersey, outside of Philadelphia, and you can't really get Yuengling out here. So it's not the best beer in the world, but I took a stab at brewing it in the classic homebrew style. If you can't buy it locally, try to brew it. So that was my inspiration for trying to brew this clone, and I'm interested to see how close you guys think I got.
Are you out here on the West Coast then?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we've been out here since junior high.
Yeah, I love a Yuengling, man. I've had it exactly one time when my wife and I went to Disney World and just drank that and rosé for like 6 days. And it was the greatest thing in the entire universe. I love it so much. I love Yuengling so much. And you sent a shit ton of it, which I appreciated. I had one last night, and I have another one in the fridge, and it was just something good about it. I don't know what it is.
Nice. I'm glad you liked it.
No, I love Yuengling. It's great, man. It's great. So this is a clone of yours. I guess I didn't know Yuengling was an International Amber Lager, or did you change that? Did you brew this and maybe it came out a little different than you said, okay, well then what category would it fit into?
Well, so based on my research, that's where it would fit, but I'm interested to hear what the...
No, it's a classic commercial example for International Amber Lager. It's in the guidelines.
Yeah.
All right.
Like I've had Yuengling lager, but it's a lot paler.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for it. I thought it wasn't that great. This is a lot better, and I understand why people are excited about this beer.
All right.
I think it's pretty good. And I think it's kind of like what am I trying to think of? Anchor's theme locally, Yeah. Like it kind of reminds me a little bit of Anchor's theme.
Okay. Interesting. Hopefully it travels better than Anchor Steam does.
Yeah. And indoors longer.
God,
Clearly,
that beer
yes,
does not travel well at all, man.
No.
An hour outside of San Francisco, it's like, oh, that's all right. That's more than a day old. That's good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's one of the major.
Further in Oakland or like San Mateo, no, don't drink Anchor Steam. But there's no choice now, I guess. So
Right.
It's true. Okay, Shar, I think it's your turn.
Yeah. All right. So, what is you're in the West Coast? Are you in a homebrew club, perhaps by chance?
I'm not. There was a few guys that we started brewing together a few years ago when I first got into the hobby. The Yeasty Boys. So shout out to the Yeasty Boys.
Nice.
And just a kind of a garage operation. We started doing extract brewing, and I was the only one that persisted, and I got deep into the hobby, and everyone else fell off. I'm sure like a lot of us probably have had happen.
Listen, all y'all, it's sabotage.
Right.
Sorry, that's my Beastie Boys thing, as opposed to fighting for your right to party, which everyone. Yeah, that's anyway. So I like this beer a lot. Thank you for sharing this with us. I like this. Is that I've had Yuengling. They make a different beer that's not an amber lager that I don't think is anything special. This beer is really interesting, and I think you hit pretty much on the mark here. If Can You Brew It was still a show, I would say you brewed it. So well done.
Nice.
So hasn't been a show for like 20 years, but anyway.
Right.
So aroma, you get low malt aroma, low caramel aroma. I get some nuttiness, and maybe that's just part of that caramel. But I get a nutty character, but not overwhelming. It's not like some sort of British style where that nuttiness can be just like, wow, that's too much. It's in the background. It's pleasant. No hop aroma, no diacetyl, no off aromas. Give it an 8 out of 12. Appearance 3 out of 3. It's crystal clear. Very low head, not persistent. I looked that up in the style guidelines, and you know what? Low head, not persistent is straight down the middle for international amber lager. So that's something that I don't drink a lot of these or judge a lot of them, but those style guidelines are 70, 80 pages long. It's always nice to go back and learn a few things about styles that you maybe didn't remember. That's interesting. Copper color.
Yeah, never say you didn't know it. You just maybe didn't remember it at the time.
I forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot what the head was for this style. The color is identical. If I poured these two, I poured these two. I have this background on my Zoom. Otherwise, I'd hold these things up. But the color is literally identical between the two. And if there's a little bit of difference, it's between the glass size. So well done on that. Yeah. These guys.
The Homebrew's a little hazier, but yeah, the color's there. I mean, you could.
They're essentially, for all practical purposes, they're identical. I mean, yeah, they're within the acceptable margin of error for things that are identical. I would claim. So well done. That's 3 out of 3. Flavor, initially the flavor is malty. I get a low caramel and a low nuttiness, just like in the aroma, which is really pleasant. Low hop bitterness comes up to almost balanced mid-palate, but this is still a malt-focused beer. It's not malt-focused so much that it's sweet or cloying, which is really tough to do, and I applaud you're getting to that point, because it's malty, but it's not sweet. Finish is moderately long and balanced toward malt. I get a little bit of a low earthy hop flavor in this. I'm curious. I'll be curious later on what hops you use. It's well attenuated. There's no off flavors. As it warms, I get maybe a hint of diacetyl, but I also think that might just be the caramel part of the recipe. And I'm not. I know I'm moderately. I'm right down the middle of that bell curve for diacetyl sensitivity. I'm not blind to it. I'm not super sensitive to it. There's sometimes you get a little bit of sweetness, and as a judge, you think, oh, maybe that's diacetyl, maybe that's butterscotch. I don't know. I'm not willing to go check that box on the left of the score sheet to say that's diacetyl. So I get 14 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel, 4 out of 5. Medium-low carbonation, a little bit lower than I might have liked, but it's weird. I gave it the 4 out of 5, but if I compare them head to head, as opposed to the style guidelines, the carbonation's about the same. So, and the Yuengling Amber Lager is one of the commercial examples of this style. So maybe I'm going back and drinking a little bit of each one of these. So, and again, yours have been sitting out for 2 hours, so the carbonation's about gone. Yours is maybe a little bit less in carbonation. That's an easy fix. We always talk about packaging and carbonating being like, it's difficult but important for competition. And it's not the most fun thing. But overall, that's only a point, 4 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression, 8 out of 10. I give it a 37 out of 50, which is very good. This is a smooth, easy drinking beer. It's interesting. It's quaffable. I could sit down with a 6-pack of this and drink this in a day and have a good time and be happy and not be smashed.
I'm telling you.
And enjoy the flavor. Yeah.
Florida, 12:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
In a 24-hour pool.
Yeah.
The tall boy of this and a solo cup of rosé is just the best way to round out a Disney World trip.
I totally believe you.
Yeah.
And that this is you're getting, because we were getting with this is flavor, and it's not giant alcohol, and it's pleasant, but it's something you're having a day off or a weekend, you could enjoy it and not feel guilty about having a 6-pack of these. A little bit more carbonation, I think, would make this a little closer to your target. And that's, we talk about this all the time. I won't belabor the point, but I think a little higher carbonation would take this over 40. So well done. Really appreciate you sharing this with us. And I will shut up and drink the rest of this while Coop talks about it.
All right, Coop, you heard the man.
Yeah. Okay. So at HomebrewCon 2 years ago in Pittsburgh, Keith Cost, who used to host this show with me, and I went to a place called Tiki Lounge.
And he used to be in my homebrew club with me. Yeah, back in the day.
We had beers there. There were other places around. We went over by the college over there, college area, and I ordered some Yuengling in that area. And trying to remember, I remember that the Tiki Bar. We went a few different places, had some fun, but I had it there. It is again like, if you live on the West Coast, you get Anchor Steam all the time. Well, you used to. Hopefully they come back, but on the East Coast, this is even more omnipresent there. It's insane. So, but yeah, like JP said, it can be an enjoyable beer, and they call it on the can the original amber beer. And America's.
What's wild to me is like you see a can of Yuengling the first time, again, it was in Florida, and you sort of realize how much Anheuser-Busch ripped them off.
Yeah.
You see the eagle and just the kind of the lettering, and the whole
crazy
vibe of the label and shit like that. You're like, oh, this is okay. I sort of you sort of get that other side of the beer world.
And what I had was in a bottle, so it wasn't this from the can is actually quite pleasant. I'm really enjoying it. But before I drank this, to remind me what it tastes like, which is it's not something that stuck in my head because I had a few beers before that. But tonight I'm starting relatively fresh. The Yuengling Clone was the first beer that I tasted tonight, and I'm just having little bits of it here. So yeah, it's a big bomber bottle. The bottle had a pretty low fill. It was kind of filled just above the shoulder of the bottle, but I'm not getting any big oxidation in the flavor or aroma here, so that's fine. Nice hiss when I opened it. I would try to fill them a little higher for a competition if possible, but just a fine point. However the beer tastes coming out is how I'll judge it. In the aroma, it's got a pleasant low grainy malt note with substantial toast at a medium-high level. I found a slight nuttiness as well, just like Brian noted. No DMS or diacetyl. Not finding any obvious esters. It seems like a cleanly fermented lager. In the hop department, it's really light. There's a light floral hop. And if you hunt for it, you could find a light bit of spice, but it's not overt at all. Appearance wise, the beer I had to look again. I had to re-pour it to get to the head because it, I put whitish ? Because I just looked for the foam. There was nothing left. It formed a very small head and it faded super quickly. And then when I re-poured a little bit, it again just pushed up some larger bubbles and faded to finer bubbles and then just dropped before I could even almost look at it again. But mostly finer bubbles as it settled and then before it went away. But head retention was poor. Like Brian said, that's allowable. But I'd like, even in a beer like this, a little bit more. And on the Yuengling, it's sticking around a little better than the Clone is. And I poured these at the same time, so that's fair. But yeah, still gave it 3 out of 3 for appearance. It's a rich golden amber color, fairly clear. Looks right for the style. And yeah, you can forgive that head thing. Flavor wise, there's this that welcome maltiness dominates with a moderate toasty and bread crust like flavor. Hops and bitterness are medium low with a floral presentation, tiny hint of spiciness again, but I haven't any grasp for that. And it's really, the hops are really out of the way. clean lager ferment, no esters. Again, a bready, rich malt that lingers into the aftertaste. It's a bit big on the malt, department. I think maybe partially because the carbonation is a little bit lower, that it kind of lingers on your palate a little longer that way and just kind of sits. But it's really not detracting from the drinkability of the beer. It finishes semi-dry and kind of in the territory where it needs to be. 15 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel wise, it's medium bodied and smooth, no serious bite or any warmth. The beer is not astringent, and it's almost a bit toward creamy. These beers can play a little bit on the creamy side. They don't need to, but it shouldn't be a stark, sharp, bitingly dry beer with no creaminess or no smoothness to it. It should be a smooth drinking experience. Medium low to low carbonation throughout. 4 out of 5 for mouthfeel, even though maybe the carbonation was one that I should have thought about pulling a little lower, but it's really smooth for what it is and very, very drinkable. Feels fine. Overall, it's a well-crafted international amber lager. I would say it's a bit on the more flavorful and malty side for the style. You could bring up the bitterness just a touch more, and somewhat higher carbonation could help drive things a little more nicely here. Give it a touch of, you don't want it to be crisp per se, but just give it a little edge along with the beer. The malt sweetness it doesn't necessarily get cloying without that, but it that lends balance to the malt that's there. It is quite enjoyable and very easy drinking as it is. Obviously, you have a good recipe and fresh ingredients, authentic ingredients. I would say there's no need to reduce the malt flavors here, even though that's all I'm mostly talking about, malt and the nuttiness and the richness. No, don't reduce that. Just adjust the CO2 mainly, and work on. Well, you could, it was fairly clear, but adding a little more carbonation and maybe if needed, if it doesn't bring, leave a little bit of the head on there, a protein rest or something to make sure you have some kind of medium to small chain proteins in there hanging out just for a little while. And then just going to the Yuengling and comparing it to the Yuengling, to the can. The homebrew, I think, is just a bit richer, just a bit maltier seeming, and that might be because of the carbonation or because of the actual malt, but it seems just a touch nuttier to me. The homebrew it seems just the tiniest touch darker, but not much. It's really right in the range, like Brian said. Hops, I think, same. I believe the homebrew is a tiny bit less dry or dry seeming, maybe because the bite from the carbonation in the Yuengling can flourishes in your mouth.
I just poured these two, one after the other. Homebrew version and that can, it poured second, and it's still just kind of right there. The head is still. This is
the head. All of a sudden, you're like blending your beers on the fly here. What's going on?
I'm not blending. No, I didn't blend them. I poured them in the same. No. This is the homebrew one. This is the commercial one.
Yeah.
Just talking about
when you put it in front of your dark shirt, it looks darker. But yeah, I think that's.
I'm just talking about the head right now, boys.
The head only.
Right.
Yeah.
You should pour them together. Well, that's Cooper's thing to pour them together now.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely the homebrew
about the carbonation could be a little bit higher. Yeah. I think you're right, Cooper. I think that would really make it pop a bit more.
Yeah, the homebrew had less long lasting and moderately less carbonation and prickle to it. That prickle kind of lets the toast kind of play in a certain way and maybe keeps it from being so nutty and kind of not flabby or dull, but just kind of, it's a little perkier with the carbonation in there. But both of them are very flavorful, and I can imagine what that would taste like with a little more carbonation. That's the main thing you probably want to look at, honestly, is right there. So very well done. Nicely done. I gave the beer a 39, the homebrew. Just a little more carbonation would bring it up to 42 for me.
Very good. Yeah. Look, I like all these points. I'm a big fan of these kind of styles of beers. And to be honest with you, when I had the can last night, I didn't pour it in a glass. I drank it out of the can. I sort of forgot how dark it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I've ever gotten it in a glass. Maybe I have somewhere that's some homebrew con back east somewhere. But for the most part, it's like, wow, it's pretty neat.
It's not like you go to a bar on the East Coast and they like delicately pour it in the can.
It's like,
It's like
whatever, man.
here, in a glass. They just hand you the can or the bottle. Okay, here's your Yuengling. Go on, drink it.
But I do really enjoy it. I think that the commercial example has a little bit of like a tiny bit of like that fruity, maybe like a little green apple skin kind of thing. I don't know what that is. Where the homebrew version, Chris's version, does not have that. I think Cooper and Shar both touched on it. It is a little more nuttier. It's a little more flavor forward, which I like. And if that carbonation was up there, it would be, I mean, you know, look, you can see already the homebrew version is basically the head is gone and the England's still there. So then it's going to be pretty much impossible on a home version to get, you know, a carbonation level like this.
But I prefer the clone, frankly. I prefer yours.
The flavor
just a little bit. I think you're a little bit over. And you get that carbonation right, man. That's a Yuengling killer. Don't kill it.
Well, you mentioned that the apple skin thing. Some beers like Rolling Rock, for example, they intentionally leave a bit of acetaldehyde in the beer to give it that like kind of green apple edge, like a crispness to it, like a snap.
I like the homebrew version, Chris. It's nuttier, and I do like that edge coming through it. Anyway, it's great. I didn't say anything that nobody else has. Why don't you hit us with your recipe? Because we're sort of running long in the tooth on this show for some reason.
Yeah.
So, all right. I'll try to rip through it then for the sake of the show. So I brewed a 7.5 gallon batch. I do 2.5 gallons of bottles, and this was bottle conditioned, the ones that were sent to you guys. And then I do a 5 gallon keg as well. I brew on an Anvil Foundry. So
nice.
I just filtered water, added some calcium chloride and some gypsum, some Camden, and then threw in. I had 10 pounds of Briess pale ale malt, 3 pounds of Vienna, 2 pounds of flaked corn, 1.5 pounds of C60, and then I actually added some Ultra Firm to the mash to kind of dry out the mash a little bit.
I think it's interesting that you added 2 pounds of flaked corn. I did not get corn flavor in here, and yet I think that really improves the drinkability and the fermentability of this beer.
I think so too. I did a 60-minute mash at 152. And then boiled for 60 minutes. I added 2 ounces of Cascade, 5% at 60, and then 1 ounce of Cascade, so all Cascade at 30 minutes. Laurel Flock tablet at 15, 2 of them actually, and then I did. I think I didn't have enough of the lager yeast, so I did 1 package of German lager, the Cellar Science one, and then 1 package of Nova lager. I ferment in a Spike CF10 conical, and then I dropped the glycol down to 50 and fermented it at 50. So so I think it was interesting that you guys picked up, Shar. I think you picked up on the diacetyl a little bit. I had a definite diacetyl problem with the kegged version. I tasted them next to each other, and I was like, "This is a diacetyl bomb at this point." So first time I ever did the krausening process. So I pulled it out of the keg, the keezer. I had some lager yeast. I got a big healthy starter going. I let it come up to room temperature, pitched that in there, and let it sit for a couple days. And lo and behold, I put it back in the kegerator and carbonated it, and it's great now. So
that is perfect. I love that.
That's a great way to. And I maybe got the tiniest bit.
Yeah.
And whatever you did, I mean, I've had butter bombs, and this is not a butter bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. It was a really good learning experience for me. I'd never done that before. I've never tried to fix that particular off flavor. I've had it before and figured, hey, that was either in my beer lines or whatever. So I swapped out my beer lines, and then I was like, no, this is not. I tried some directly off, like, with a picnic tap, and I was like, this is not in the lines.
Right.
So I was able to clean it up, and I was super proud that I actually was
great job, man. You should be proud of yourself for that. Part of homebrewing, part of the fun of the hobby is figuring out how to fix things on the fly when things go wrong, because stuff goes wrong all the time, whether it's on the hot side or the cold side or whatever. And, kudos to you, man, for figuring out how to get 98% of that stuff out of that beer.
without having to sour it or distill it or something weird.
Sure.
My methods of rescuing stuff.
Weird homebrew shit.
Yeah. So the only things I had on my notes are that I didn't have any cluster. So some of the a lot of the recipes that I found for Yuengling are like Cascade and cluster. So next time I'd probably try some cluster in there as well, and then maybe back off on the C60. I don't know, 10, 20%, something like that. Just back off a little bit on the C60 and then bump up the carbonation. I think it's pretty much there.
The
Cascade,
the hop flavor and the bitterness, I think, are right on.
Okay. The Cascade surprised me though, because I don't pick up a citrus, and it's so light. The hops are pretty low, but I think you said half an ounce or something at 60 minutes. Or
how is it coming out of the
2
keg?
ounces.
2 ounces. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot. That's
What's it taste like coming out of the keg?
It tastes pretty similar to this now that it's cleaned up. Actually, at first I preferred the kegged version,
right?
And then I really like. So I wasn't sure about how it was gonna like hold up because I can't keep it all cold here. So full disclosure, I store it warm, and I'm like, I know, like, man, hopefully it's not all like cardboard, and like you guys are gonna thrash it for that. So I'm glad it wasn't terrible. I think that obviously, if in a perfect world, I would be able to keep it all cold, but I'm impressed by how well like keg conditioning, bottle conditioning, the yeast is able to like kind of keep some of those off flavors suppressed in the bottle.
Definitely a defect scavenger for sure. Yeah. If you can, bottle off a few and let them bottle condition and then keep them cold and enter it in a competition, say bottle an appropriate number of 12-ounce bottles. And
I think
NHC registration is coming up. Get the carbonations up a little bit more, why not?
Yeah. And I guess my thought on asking about the carbonation is if you bump up the carbonation in the keg, because my fear is, if you start mucking around with the malt, you're going to change the flavor.
Mm-hmm.
When I think it would be interesting to see what this beer tastes like just with more carbonation, because I think it's going to clean up some of that C60. But if you drop some of that, you're going to lose some of that sort of weird nuttiness that we all kind of like. So I wonder if you, in that keg, if you can crank the CO2 up a couple more pounds and see how that changes things. And then if it still doesn't, then because as it sits, there is a sweet, you can taste the caramel. And I would like that to be gone as well, but I wonder if that increased carbonation would be enough. But
when you guys were talking on the earlier show about letting it sit for a couple hours, I was like, oh no, if they let my beer sit for a couple hours, it's probably going to be a buttery mess.
dude, I let your beer sit. I that was me, and I did that. I let your beer sit for 2 hours out of the fridge on my kitchen cabinet. It's probably a solid 66 in my house. And I think it's phenomenal even after sitting on the counter for 2 hours. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, do we have any other questions, or does Chris have any questions for us? Because if not, we're going to let him go and we're going to end this show.
Nope, I think I got my notes, and thank you guys for judging my beer. This is cool to finally be on your show. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Well,
you're going to be on the next one. I appreciate your sharing.
Thanks.
You're going to be on the next show with Andrew here. Yeah.
I'll hang out.
All right. Well, just hang out. Right. I mean, what are you going to do? Hang up and then dial right back? I mean, come on.
I wouldn't dare.
And if you guys want to send in beer and be on this show, like Chris and Andrew, of course, you can email brian@thebrewingnetwork.com. And you know how we always say, oh, we'll take anything because, we just fucking say it. Well, these two guys have called us out on it. So we have a hop water and a kombucha to drink. And honey to taste.
Honey.
Yeah, so this is the Whole Foods show coming up next. It's going to be great. And we're all going to get in our Teslas and we're going to drive around. I'll put on autopilot and talk about the kombucha and eat honey. And I think it's going to be great.
We're going to be so drunk and we're going to be autopiloting all around like the Diablo Valleys. It'll be fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great, man. Anyway, so check that out. brian@thebrewingnetwork.com. Email that dude and, get on the show. Have a good time with us. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, we will see you later.